everyone, and welcome back to English Expressions with Dr. Steph. I have been saying for a few days now that I am going to introduce you to my Kindle library. And so today, the book that I am sharing with you is on my Kindle library. It is Noises in the Blood by Carolyn Cooper of Jamaica. Now, Noises in the Blood has a subtitle. It is Orality, Gender, and the Vulgar Body of Jamaican Popular Culture. This is a work that was published in 1995. I remember the publication of this work very well. I was actually in attendance when it was launched, and it truly was significant that just last year, 2023, we were able to get together and to commemorate 30 years of this publication. And it has just been an absolutely let me correct that. It was originally published in 1993. And so in 2023, we commemorated the 30 years of its publication. It was a second edition that was published in 1995. So this online version is from the 1995 publication. But in 1993, while I was an undergraduate at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, I was a member of the audience during the launch, and I remember it well. I remember who the MC was. I remember some of the speeches that were made. I remember just celebrating with my then professor, Dr. Cooper, now Professor Emerita Carolyn Cooper. Just celebrating this accomplishment. I remember how excited we all were that she had put together this work, and really a work that's really seminal. It has just charted the way for so many other persons to write about similar interests. And today I want to focus on one of the chapters that really looks at dancehall and that celebrates the female body in that space. And so we talk about creative expressions, and though I've been focusing largely on writings, we know that a number of Black writers, we know that a number of Black artists have actually expressed similar sentiments of rebellion, of revolution, of affirmation, of celebrating the language, all of the things we've been talking about that resonates in the writings from the Caribbean and the African diaspora. We can also find these in other artistic expressions as well. So Carolyn Cooper has used this particular work to explore a number of areas. When we look at the contents for this work, in the introduction, she talks about oral sexual discourse in Jamaican popular culture. In chapter 1, Me Know No Law, Me Know No Sin, Transgressive Identities and the Voice of Innocence, the historical context. She looks at culture and tradition and birthright, and she looks at proverb as metaphor in the poetry of Louise Bennett. And the information continues. We see her looking at various aspects of orality, of culture, of looking at what comes out of the folk. And it is in chapter 8 that she explores slackness, hiding from culture, erotic play in the dance hall. Carolyn Cooper has been instrumental in putting together the Reggae Studies unit at UWI, and we celebrate her for being a trendsetter, for truly blazing trails, for setting standards that so many of us in academia, so many of us in this space we occupy in the Caribbean, so many of us who are really honoring what comes out of the folk. We stand in admiration of what she has accomplished. She has not been hesitant to celebrate her language, to celebrate her folk, to look at the folk as presented in various works, whether through works of literature, through song, and indeed through dancehall. And I just wanted to jump to this particular chapter. A lot of things that were considered vulgar, the presentation of the female body in dancehall, for example, she has looked at and said this isn't vulgar at all. It is an affirmation and celebration of just loving the body we occupy and the space we occupy. And so when I look at this particular chapter, if you could just allow me to read a few lines from it, For my online version, the page is actually page. It's very difficult to determine what it is, but it is chapter 8. So the beauty about using the online or my Kindle for this particular discussion is that it can very easily take you from chapter to chapter. It is There are some advantages to using the Kindle versus turning the pages of a book, but I must admit I still prefer turning the pages of a book. The smell of the leaves, just everything about the written word is what I enjoy. So if I jump into chapter 8 very quickly, it says here that the lyrics of the DJs define the furthest extreme of the scribal oral literary continuum in Jamaica. Unmediated by a middle class scribal sensibility, DJ Orossi articulates a distinctly urbanized folk ethos. The literariness of this massive popular cultural form is marginalized by its context of performance, the dance hall. The primary function of the DJ's art is to ram dance hall and cork party. Decontextualized, the lyrics often become decidedly limp. To the uninitiated, much of the noise that emanates from the DJs is absolutely unintelligible. The insistent sing-song of fixed rhythmic structures conspires to obscure meaning. Individual words become submerged in a wash of sound. But if you permit your ears to become attuned to this borderline sound and allow for the free play of the intellect, then patterns of meaning cohere and a framework of analysis, both sociolinguistic and literary, may be constructed. She goes on to talk about that as Jamaican becomes appropriated by the official culture, for example, as folk heritage or for authenticity in the advertising industry, and as the use of Jamaican in the scribal literary tradition becomes acceptable and conventional, then the rude impulse of the language, formerly manifested in backward folk culture, can be seen to now reassert itself in contemporary forms of verbal maroonage, such as the lyrics of the DJs. And so she shows that there is a place for the language of the DJs, there's a place for dance hall and what it means and represents to those who participate in it. There is a place for the presentation of the folk and celebrating what is traditional in various artistic expressions. And that is what we have been talking about this Black History Month 2024. We have been showing how the folk, how the culture, how the heritage, how the legacies of slavery, how we were presented in the works, the various artistic expressions, have liberated us further, have affirmed who we are, have added to our identity, and we have shown how these expressions have set new standards. And this is what Carolyn Cooper does. She sets new standards. 30 years ago, this would have been unpopular, it would have been absolutely new. But look at us 30 years later, going 31 years later, and it still resonates, has grown in new ways, has led to new areas of exploration in academia. And so we celebrate Carolyn Cooper as a trendsetter, as someone who it's worth keeping our eyes on. She has accomplished so much. Her biography is extensive. Her accomplishments are almost incomparable. And she certainly is one of those positive representations of the Black female who is making waves. So as we celebrate Noises in the Blood, thank you so much for joining me again on English Expressions with Dr. Steph. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe, and that you dare to make a difference in the space you occupy.